very good evening. Welcome to State of Business on our television. I'm Ashinsani Veerasinghe. Let's have a look at the headlines for today. Central Bank believes government would increase revenue as a result of the revival in economic activity, says Central Bank Governor. Government will halt the import of maize and peanuts with effect from the 15th of this month. News in detail. Central Bank Governor Professor W.D. Lakshman says that the central bank is on the view that the government would take further measures to rationalize expenditure and to increase revenue as a result of the revival in economic activity. The newly appointed Central Bank Governor Professor Lakshman made these observations announcing the Roadmap 2020 titled Monetary and Financial Sector Policies for 2020 and Beyond at the Central Bank premises today morning.
We hope that the government would take further measures to rationalize expenditure and that revenue would go up as a result of the revival of economic activity. Required reforms are expected to widen the tax base, improve tax administration and compliance. Strengthening state-owned business enterprises through implementing essential reforms would enhance government revenues and reduce the fiscal burden to maintain such entities, while ensuring better service delivery for the public and the business community. In this regard, we welcome the ongoing efforts to improve the operational efficiency of state-owned enterprises through a streamlined process to appoint professionals to manage such entities.
Dwelling upon the financial sector policies for the current year and beyond, Central Bank Governor Professor W.D. Lakshman also noted that crisis preparedness and resilience of banks need to be further strengthened.
As a regulator, we understand that crisis preparedness and resilience of banks need to be further strengthened. Accordingly, banks will be required to implement recovery plans in order to minimize the adverse impact on troubled banks and their possible spillover effects to the financial system. Further, accounting standards and existing banking directions will be reviewed and amended where necessary with a view to strengthening prudent requirements on credit, market, liquidity, operational and other risks in line with international regulatory standards and best practice. In order to address technology risks, changes will be introduced in the regulatory and supervisory framework with respect to information technology and security of banks, in line with international standards and best practices.
The Central Bank of Sri Lanka announced that its Monetary Board has extended the suspension of activities of Perpetual Treasuries Limited for another 6 months effective from yesterday. The suspension on Perpetual Treasuries was first implemented on July 6, 2017 for a period of 6 months and then was extended by another 6 months. The Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, acting in terms of the regulations made under the Registered Stock and Securities Ordinance and the Local Treasury Bills Ordinance, has decided to extend the suspension of PTL from carrying on the business and activities of a primary dealer for a period of 6 months, the Central Bank announced this morning. The suspension on Perpetual Treasuries was first implemented on the 6th of July 2017 for a period of 6 months, and then the suspension was extended for several times by the periods of 6 months. Anyhow, when the Parliament was met this week, the parliamentarians from both the government and the opposition demanded Speaker Karu Jayasuriya to publish the forensic audit report which had been completed by now defunct COPE committee soon. A presidential commission of inquiry which probed the rigged bond auction that allegedly benefited Perpetual Treasuries recommended criminal action against those involved and profits to be recovered. Accordingly, Perpetual Treasuries Limited owner Arjun Aloysius and CEO Kasun Palisena were arrested and later released on bail in January last year after being remanded for over 10 months for being linked to the central bank bond scam. Former Central Bank Governor Arjun Mahendran, who happens to be the father-in-law of Aloysius, is absconding court and has a red notice for his arrest. In November, 6 foreign forensic audits commissioned to investigate the bond scam and allegations of earlier misconduct in primary bond auctions and the managing of the Employees' Provident Fund were completed. However, the Attorney General's Department has taken time to publish the reports as they may be used in future legal action against wrongdoers. The Ministry of Agriculture states that the government has decided to halt the import of maize and peanuts. Thus, the suspension will be in effect from the 15th of this month. Fulfilling the election promise to rejuvenate the local producer and the farmer, the newly appointed government announced a series of bans for importing goods that can be locally produced and manufactured. As the first step, the Ministry of Finance banned the import of spices and minor crops. The importation of black pepper, dry areca nut, cinnamon, nutmeg, maize, cardamom, ginger, turmeric and cloves for re-export has been banned. Relevant gazette notification has been issued on the orders of Prime Minister and Finance Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa effective from December 5th midnight. On the other hand, Sri Lanka also issued regulations controlling the imports of Vesak lanterns and joss sticks with effect from December 5th midnight. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's Ministry of Finance and Planning suspended the importation of ethanol from other countries last week. The newest addition to the banned goods includes the halt on importing maize and peanuts, and thus suspension will be in effect from the 15th of this month. Stay tuned for more news after this short break. Welcome back after the break. Highlighting that inconsistency in the bail system is one of the main reasons for crowding of prisons, Attorney at Law Krishmal Varnasuriya explains that bail must be the rule rather than the exception, given that every person charged with a crime is presumed innocent until proven guilty. He made these views at a context where the general public was inquisitive of the due process when several parliamentarians of the opposition were arrested and bailed out during the past few days.
We commonly hear these days when a member of parliament or a politician is immediately arrested, some persons come out against it. And some we hear on news coming and saying, we should take this person, we should put him in. Now, what do you mean by putting him in? That is the question. You see, under Sri Lankan law, the constitution, which is a supreme law, Article 13(5) allows a person to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. Now, how is that guilt proven? A person accused of a crime must be brought before a competent court and after a due process be proven guilty. It is only then that if that crime deserves a punishment or a custodial sentence, someone is sentenced to imprisonment. But there are certain occasions where, pending that trial, a person is remanded to custody. Now, when you are remanded to custody, that is not that you have been found guilty. You have been placed in custody for whatever reason. Reasons may be that you may avoid trial, you may run away without coming for trial. For reasons such as that, you are placed in remand custody. Now, that is now guided by the Bail Act. With the recent amendments of the Bail Act, the rule is that you must grant bail. The exception is that you don't grant bail.
Speaking further, senior lawyer Krishmal Varnasuriya reiterates that no government should interfere in the judicial system and that the misconceptions of the bail system should be wiped out.
We must remember, whatever government that is in power, if we are encouraging a government, now we know that the previous government, there were allegations as the so-called Yahapalana government came in. They were having some office in temple trees and deciding on who to take into custody and whom not to. Now that is wrong. That is not a lawful process. Similarly, any government that decides to interfere with the course of justice, where justice is, one is charged, one is tried, one is proven guilty, then one is put into prison if that is so. However, this remand custody or taking someone to remand custody and going out on news and saying these persons must be put in. Now that is a wrong misconception. It's a misconception that you must not give the public because the trial process must complete for someone to be imprisoned. But if bail is due, the grant of bail is nothing unlawful. It's the norm. We must get our minds accustomed to it. The present day trend is not to fill up prisons with people. Present day trend is to finish justice soon. And if someone should be enlarged on bail, that court has a right to enlarge that person on bail.
A survey commissioned by the Advocata Institute in April last year reveals that 57% of Sri Lankans were unwilling to pay extra for food, even if it meant that the local agricultural industry would be protected. This survey covered 855 respondents in 18 districts within 8 provinces in Sri Lanka. The survey also revealed that the lower the socio-economic category, the less willing respondents were to pay extra for their food to protect the local industry. Socio-economic category is the category an individual falls into based on their education and occupation. It was only in the highest socio-economic category where 51% answered yes, agreeing to incur a higher cost of living at the cost of protectionist taxes. Socio-economic category following it were increasingly reluctant to pay more for food, even if it meant that local businesses were protected, since the lower income households spent most of their income on food, according to the Household Income and Expenditure Survey. The survey also noted differences across provinces, and respondents from the North Central and Sabaragamu provinces were more willing to incur higher food costs, with 64% from the North Central province and 61% from the Sabaragamu province answering yes. In contrast, only 22% of respondents from the Southern province and 24% from the Northwestern province answered positive. Interestingly, 72% of males were unwilling to bear the burden of a higher cost for food, according to the survey. Sri Lanka won a series of international accolades for its tourism with the dawn of the new year. Sri Lanka was ranked first for the category of Asia's best nation for wildlife tourism by Top 10 Asia's premier publications, and Sri Lanka also ranks the first in the best holiday destinations for 2020 list compiled by the UK's The Times magazine. On the other hand, Sri Lanka is ranked number 1 in the best holiday destination for 2020 listed by the Times magazine in the UK. The beachside in Galle, Tangaul, the tea plantations and country's mountainous areas are highly appreciated by the travel experts of the Sunday Times travel team in the UK. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka was also included in the CNN Travel's 20 best places to visit in 2020. The CNN Travels list further says, quote in, "Despite recent tumult, the horrific terror attacks last Easter, Sri Lanka remains an essential destination, an epicenter of history with relics and ruins, temples and palaces, wildlife running free." Quote out. Moreover, the ancient city of Polonnaruwa, the rock fortresses, Sigiriya, which is also referred to as the 8th wonder of the world, the Kandy Asala Perahara, the gathering where herds of wild elephants migrate to the shores of Min Area National Park, are some of the areas and sites which were given special emphasis on the list. Stay tuned for stock updates after this short break. Welcome back after the break. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a negative note today. The all-share price index dropped 41.35 points to close at 6,069.93, and the S&P SL20 dropped 34.71 points to close at 2,893.79. The turnover was 444 million rupees and over 30 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. That's all the news for today. Join us tomorrow at the same time. Until then, take care.